Marcus should have let her die. The rich woman's family fired him 3 years ago. They took away his job when he asked for fair pay. Now her house was burning and she was trapped inside. He could walk away and get his revenge. But Marcus made a different choice. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Marcus wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished his third cleaning job of the day. His hands were rough and cracked from the harsh chemicals, but he didn't complain. He had learned long ago that complaining wouldn't put food on the table for his 7-year-old daughter, Emma. "Daddy, are you coming home soon?" Emma's voice crackled through his old phone. "Yes, sweetheart. Just one more job and then we'll have dinner together," Marcus replied, forcing cheerfulness into his tired voice. Emma was staying with Mrs. Rodriguez, their elderly neighbor who watched her after school. Marcus couldn't afford proper childcare, but Mrs. Rodriguez had a kind heart and only charged him $20 a week. Money she probably needed just as much as he did. Marcus looked at the address on his crumpled paper, 1247 Hillcrest Manor. It was in the wealthy part of town, where houses sat behind tall gates and manicured lawns stretched like green carpets. He had been hired to clean the windows of what the agency called an emergency job. Double pay if he could get there within the hour. As his old pickup truck coughed and sputtered up the winding road, Marcus couldn't help but feel bitter. These people lived in palaces while he worked 16-hour days just to afford their tiny apartment in the rundown part of the city. Emma's shoes had holes in them and winter was coming. He had been saving for months to buy her a proper coat. The mansion that came into view took his breath away. It was enormous, with marble columns and floor-to-ceiling windows that sparkled even in the fading daylight. A silver Bentley sat in the circular driveway like a piece of jewelry on display. Marcus parked his truck near the service entrance, hoping the contrast wasn't too embarrassing. As he gathered his cleaning supplies, he noticed smoke seeping from under a side door of the house. At first, Marcus thought it might be steam from a dryer or kitchen appliance. But as he got closer, the acrid smell of burning plastic and wood filled his nostrils. This was definitely smoke, and it was getting thicker. He dropped his cleaning bucket and ran toward the front door, pressing the doorbell repeatedly. No answer. The smoke was becoming more visible now, dark tendrils curling from several windows on the ground floor. "Hello? Is anyone inside?" Marcus shouted, pounding on the heavy wooden door. From somewhere deep in the house, he heard a voice, weak and frightened. Without hesitation, Marcus tried the door handle. It was unlocked. The inside of the house was even more magnificent than he had imagined, with crystal chandeliers and artwork that probably cost more than he made in a year. But the beauty was being consumed by orange flames that danced along the curtains and wooden panels. "Help. Someone help me." The voice was clearer now, a woman's voice coming from upstairs. The smoke was getting thicker, making it hard to breathe. Marcus pulled his shirt over his nose and mouth and headed for the grand staircase. Each step felt like a small betrayal of his survival instincts, but he couldn't leave someone to die. At the top of the stairs he found her. Victoria Ashford was trapped in her bedroom, conscious but weak from smoke inhalation. She was younger than Marcus had expected, maybe in her early 30s, with blonde hair and expensive clothes. Even in her distressed state, everything about her screamed wealth and privilege. "The door is jammed," she gasped. "I can't get out." Marcus examined the situation quickly. The doorframe had warped from the heat, making the door impossible to open normally. Without wasting time, he threw his shoulder against it with all his strength. Once, twice, 3 times, until finally it gave way. "Can you walk?" he asked. Victoria nodded weakly, and Marcus helped her to her feet. She leaned heavily against him as they made their way toward the stairs. The fire had spread quickly, too quickly. The staircase they had climbed was now blocked by fallen, burning debris. "This way," Marcus said, guiding her toward a window at the end of the hallway. He opened the window and looked down. They were about 15 feet up, overlooking a garden area with thick bushes below. Not ideal, but better than burning alive. "I can't," Victoria whispered, looking at the drop with terror. "You have to trust me," Marcus said firmly. "I'll go first and then you jump. I'll catch you." Without waiting for her response, Marcus climbed out the window and hung from the ledge by his fingertips before dropping. He landed hard, rolling to absorb the impact. Pain shot through his left shoulder, but he was okay. "Now," he called up to her. Victoria appeared at the window, hesitating for a moment before climbing out. She fell more than jumped, but Marcus was there to break her fall. They both tumbled to the ground just as the upstairs windows exploded outward in a shower of glass and flame. The fire department arrived 20 minutes later, but it was too late to save the house. Victoria's mansion, her family's home for 3 generations, was reduced to a smoking skeleton of what it had been. As paramedics checked them over, Victoria seemed to come back to herself. She looked at Marcus with clear eyes for the first time. "You saved my life," she said quietly. Marcus nodded, suddenly feeling awkward. Anyone would have done the same thing. "No," Victoria said, studying his face. "Not everyone would have risked their life for a stranger." The fire chief approached them with a grim expression. "Ms. Ashford, I'm sorry, but I have some questions about how this fire started." Victoria looked confused. "I don't understand. I was taking a nap when I smelled smoke." The fire chief exchanged a look with a police officer who had just arrived. "We found evidence of accelerant in multiple locations. This fire was deliberately set." Marcus felt his blood run cold as both the fire chief and the police officer turned to look at him. "Sir, we're going to need to ask you some questions," the officer said. "You were the first person on the scene and you had access to the house." At the police station, Marcus found himself in an interrogation room facing Detective Rodriguez. No relation to his neighbor, despite sharing the same last name. "Let me get this straight," Detective Rodriguez said, reading from his notes. "You show up at this wealthy woman's house and within minutes there's a fire. You just happen to be there to play hero and rescue her. Very convenient." "I was hired to clean windows," Marcus protested. "I have the work order." "Work order that any desperate man could have fabricated," the detective replied coldly. "Tell me, Mr. Johnson, how much money do you make cleaning windows?" Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. "Not much, but it's honest work." "Honest work that barely pays the bills, I'm sure. Must be frustrating seeing how the other half lives. Big houses, expensive cars, more money than they know what to do with." "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that maybe you thought you'd level the playing field a little. Insurance fires are more common than you might think. Maybe Ms. Ashford promised you a cut of the insurance money in exchange for your help." Marcus shot to his feet. "That's insane. I saved her life." "Or you set a fire, realized she was trapped, and had to rescue her to avoid a murder charge. Either way, you're looking at arson charges, possibly attempted murder." Marcus felt the world spinning around him. "I want to call someone." "Go ahead. But I should warn you, Ms. Ashford's family has a lot of influence in this town. They'll want someone to pay for this." Meanwhile, Victoria sat in her hospital room, staring out the window at the parking lot below. Her assistant, Margaret, was pacing back and forth, talking rapidly on her phone. "Yes, the insurance adjuster will be there tomorrow morning," Margaret was saying. "And yes, we've already contacted the legal team about pressing charges against that man." Victoria turned away from the window. "What man?" Margaret ended her call and looked at Victoria with surprise. "The man who set fire to your house, of course. The window cleaner. The police have him in custody." "He didn't set the fire," Victoria said quietly. "He saved my life." "Victoria, honey, I know the smoke inhalation affected your thinking, but you need to be realistic. This man saw an opportunity and took it. These people always do." "These people?" Margaret sat down and took Victoria's hand in a patronizing gesture. "Poor people, dear. They see what we have and they get jealous. They think they deserve what we've worked for." Victoria pulled her hand away. "What exactly have I worked for, Margaret?" "Well, your family built an empire. You inherited." "I inherited money I didn't earn, Margaret. I've never worked a real job in my life. That man has calluses on his hands and exhaustion in his eyes. He works harder in a day than I've worked in my entire life." Margaret looked shocked. "The smoke inhalation was worse than we thought. I'm calling Dr. Stevens." But Victoria wasn't listening. She was remembering the moment Marcus appeared in her bedroom doorway like an angel. She was remembering how he threw himself against the door until it opened, how he jumped from the window without hesitation, how he caught her when she fell. She was also remembering something else, something she hadn't told the police. Before the fire started, Victoria had been in her study, going through her late father's papers. She had discovered something that made her feel sick to her stomach. Evidence that her father's company had been deliberately underpaying workers for years, including falsifying timesheets and denying overtime pay. Among the papers was a list of employees who had been fired for trying to organize for better working conditions. Marcus Johnson's name was on that list, dated 3 years ago. Victoria realized with growing horror that Marcus had every reason to hate her family. Her father's company had fired him, probably leaving him desperate and struggling. Yet when Marcus found her trapped in that fire, he didn't hesitate to risk his life to save her. She picked up her phone and called her lawyer. "Richard, I need you to do something for me." There's a man in police custody, Marcus Johnson. I need all charges dropped immediately. Victoria, I understand you're grateful, but the evidence suggests nothing. I'm not pressing charges, and without my cooperation, there's no case. Your family expects. My family isn't here, Richard. I am. Do as I say. Marcus had been in jail for 3 days when the guard came to his cell. You're being released, the guard said, unlocking the door. Marcus was confused. Released? What about the charges? Dropped. Ms. Ashford refused to press charges, and without her cooperation, the DA won't pursue the case. Outside the jail, Marcus found Mrs. Rodriguez waiting with Emma. His daughter ran into his arms, tears streaming down her face. Daddy, I was so scared. I'm okay, sweetheart. Everything's okay now. Mrs. Rodriguez drove them home in silence. It wasn't until they were back in their tiny apartment that Marcus allowed himself to break down. He had come so close to losing everything, his freedom, his daughter, his future. 2 days later, there was a knock at his door. Marcus opened it to find Victoria Ashford standing in his hallway, looking completely out of place in her expensive clothes and jewelry. Several neighbors had gathered to stare at the spectacle. May I come in? She asked quietly. Marcus stepped aside and Victoria entered his small apartment. She looked around at the second-hand furniture, the peeling paint, the stack of unpaid bills on the kitchen counter. I know who you are, she said finally. Marcus tensed. What do you mean? My father's company fired you 3 years ago. You tried to organize for better working conditions and they fired you for it. Marcus said nothing, but his jaw tightened. You had every reason to hate my family, Victoria continued. Yet you saved my life anyway. I need to know why. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, then walked to the window where Emma was playing outside with other children from the building. See that little girl? He said. She's why I get up every morning. She's why I work 3 jobs and sleep 4 hours a night. She's why I saved you. I don't understand. Marcus turned to face Victoria. I saved you because I want to live in a world where my daughter can grow up believing that people are basically good. If I had let you die because of what your father did to me, what kind of lesson would that teach her? Victoria felt tears welling up in her eyes. I'm sorry. For what my father did to you, for what my family has done to so many people. I'm sorry. Apologies don't pay rent, Marcus said, but his voice wasn't angry, just tired. No, they don't, Victoria agreed. But maybe this will help. Victoria pulled out a folder from her purse and set it on Marcus's kitchen table. What's this? Marcus asked. Evidence. Documentation of everything my father's company did. The wage theft, the illegal firings, the safety violations. Everything. Marcus opened the folder and began reading. His hands started to shake as he saw page after page of evidence documenting systematic abuse of workers. There are over 300 people on this list, Victoria said. People who were cheated out of wages, fired illegally, or injured due to safety violations that were covered up. You're just one of many. Why are you showing me this? Because I want to make it right. I've already contacted a law firm that specializes in class action lawsuits. They're willing to take the case. Marcus looked up at her with suspicion. What's the catch? No catch. Well, one catch. I want you to be the lead plaintiff. Your name would be on the lawsuit. Johnson versus Ashford Industries. Why would you want me to sue your own company? Victoria sat down across from him at the small table. Because it's the right thing to do. Because my father built his wealth by stealing from people like you. Because I've spent my whole life living off money that was never rightfully ours. Marcus studied her face, looking for signs of deception. You realize you could lose everything? I realize I never deserved any of it in the first place. The lawsuit took 2 years to work its way through the courts. During that time, Victoria's life changed dramatically. Her family disowned her, calling her a traitor. Her trust fund was frozen. The mansion that had burned down was sold to pay legal fees. Victoria moved into a small apartment across town and got her first real job working at a nonprofit organization that helped low-income families. The pay was terrible, but for the first time in her life she felt like she was earning her money honestly. Marcus, meanwhile, found himself thrust into the spotlight as the face of the lawsuit. He appeared on news programs and spoke at rallies, always emphasizing that this wasn't about revenge, it was about justice. The case attracted national attention when other companies' workers came forward with similar stories. Victoria's evidence had opened the floodgates, revealing a pattern of worker abuse that went far beyond one company. Throughout the legal battle, Victoria and Marcus developed an unlikely friendship. She often stopped by his apartment to check on Emma, bringing books and small gifts. Emma, who had been shy around Victoria at first, gradually warmed up to her. "Miss Victoria," Emma said one day while they were reading together, "why did your daddy's company fire my daddy?" Victoria looked at the innocent face of the 7-year-old girl and felt her heart break a little. "Because your daddy was trying to help other people, and sometimes grown-ups make bad choices when someone tries to do the right thing. But you're helping daddy now, right?" "I'm trying to, sweetheart." Emma hugged Victoria tightly. "I think you're good people." The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning a verdict in favor of the workers. The total settlement was $847 million, one of the largest workplace abuse settlements in history. Marcus's individual settlement was enough to secure Emma's future and buy them a real home. But as he sat in the courthouse listening to the verdict, he felt surprisingly empty. Victoria, who had testified on behalf of the workers, looked pale and exhausted. Her own family's company would likely declare bankruptcy to pay the settlement. She would be left with nothing. After the verdict was read, reporters swarmed the courthouse steps. Marcus found himself separated from Victoria in the chaos. When he finally spotted her, she was walking away alone, her shoulders slumped in defeat. That evening, Marcus drove to Victoria's apartment building. It was in a rough neighborhood not much better than his own. He found her sitting on the front steps, staring at nothing. "You did the right thing," he said, sitting down beside her. Victoria let out a bitter laugh. "Did I? My family is destroyed. The company that employed thousands of people is gone. Was justice really worth all that?" "Ask the 300 families who will finally be able to pay their bills," Marcus replied. "Ask the kids who can now go to college because their parents got the money they were owed. Ask my daughter, who won't have to worry about whether we can afford groceries." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "I keep thinking about that day in the fire. If you had just left me there, none of this would have happened. If I had left you there, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. Even knowing what you know now. Even knowing that saving me would lead to all this pain for both of us." Marcus considered the question seriously. "Especially knowing what I know now. Because now I know that you're not your father. You're someone who chose to do the right thing even when it cost you everything." A year after the settlement, Marcus used part of his money to start a non-profit organization that helped workers fight wage theft and unsafe working conditions. Victoria joined him as a volunteer coordinator, using her connections and legal knowledge to help other workers find justice. Their organization, called the Fair Work Foundation, operated out of a modest office downtown. The pay was minimal for both of them, but the work was meaningful. One evening, as they were working late preparing for a case, Victoria looked up from her computer. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you think people can really change? I mean, fundamentally change who they are?" Marcus leaned back in his chair and looked at her. "I think about that a lot. 3 years ago, if someone had told me I'd be working alongside a billionaire heiress to help workers, I would have laughed." "Former billionaire heiress," Victoria corrected with a small smile. "The point is, I had you figured out before I ever met you. Rich, spoiled, disconnected from reality. I was ready to hate you just because of who your family was. You had good reason to hate me. But that's just it, I didn't hate you. Even before I knew you were trying to make things right, I couldn't bring myself to hate you. There was something about the way you thanked me after the fire, something genuine. It made me realize that judging people based on their circumstances isn't fair, whether they're rich or poor." Victoria nodded thoughtfully. "I spent my whole life being told I was special because of my family's money. It never occurred to me that the money might have come from hurting people like you. When I found those papers in my father's study, it was like seeing myself clearly for the first time. So, to answer your question, yes, I think people can change. But only if they want to badly enough." Emma, now 9 years old, had grown comfortable with Victoria's presence in their lives. She was doing well in school and had made friends in their new neighborhood. The stability that the settlement money provided had transformed her from a worried child into a confident, happy little girl. One Saturday, as the three of them were having lunch at their favorite diner, Emma asked a question that caught both adults off guard. "Daddy, are you and Miss Victoria going to get married?" Marcus nearly choked on his coffee while Victoria's face turned red. "Why would you ask that, sweetheart?" Marcus asked. "Because you like each other," Emma said matter-of-factly. "And Miss Victoria makes you smile the way you used to smile before Mommy died." Victoria and Marcus exchanged a look across the table. Emma's mother had died in a car accident when Emma was 3, something Victoria had learned months into their friendship, but which explains so much about Marcus's fierce devotion to his daughter. Miss Victoria and Daddy are friends, Marcus said carefully. Good friends who work together. I know that, Emma said, rolling her eyes with the exasperation only a 9-year-old could muster. But you could be friends and married. Like Mommy and Daddy were. After lunch, as they walked through the park, Victoria brought up Emma's question. She's very perceptive, Victoria said. Too perceptive, Marcus replied. I hope she didn't make you uncomfortable. She didn't. But it made me realize something. Marcus stopped walking and turned to look at her. What? I never thought I'd find someone who could love me for who I really am, not for what I have or what my family name could do for them. Most of the men I dated before were either fortune hunters or they put me on a pedestal because of my money. And now? Victoria smiled. Now I'm just a woman who works at a non-profit and lives in a one-bedroom apartment. And the man I've fallen in love with is someone who knew me at my worst and chose to see the best in me anyway. Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. Victoria. I know it's complicated, she said quickly. I know we come from different worlds, and I know I'm the daughter of the man who ruined your life for a while. But Marcus, what we've built together, the foundation, the friendship, the trust, it's the most real thing I've ever had. Marcus reached out and took her hand. It's not complicated at all. I love you too. I have for months, but I didn't think someone like you could really want someone like me. Someone like me? Victoria laughed. Marcus, you're the strongest, most principled person I've ever met. You saved my life in that fire, but you also saved my soul by showing me how to be a better person. 6 months later, Marcus was nervous as he prepared dinner in their new apartment. They had moved in together after 3 months of dating with Emma's enthusiastic approval. Victoria was working late at the foundation, handling a case involving a construction company that wasn't paying overtime. Marcus had volunteered to cook, giving him the perfect opportunity to execute his plan. Emma was his accomplice, having helped him pick out the ring and plan the perfect proposal. Is she going to say yes, Daddy? Emma asked for the 10th time that day. I hope so, sweetheart. But even if she doesn't, she'll still be our friend, okay? She's going to say yes, Emma said with the confidence of youth. She looks at you the way you used to look at Mommy. When Victoria came home, she found the apartment lit with candles and the smell of her favorite meal, pasta with homemade sauce, filling the air. What's all this? She asked, hanging up her coat. Just a regular Tuesday night dinner, Marcus said innocently. Victoria raised an eyebrow but played along. Throughout dinner, she told them about her day, completely unaware of the small jewelry box hidden in Marcus's pocket. After they finished eating, Emma excused herself to her room, claiming she had homework. Victoria started to clear the dishes, but Marcus stopped her. Leave them, he said. I have something to tell you. Victoria sat back down, suddenly looking concerned. Is everything okay? Marcus took a deep breath. 3 years ago, I thought my life was over. I was working 3 jobs and barely making ends meet. I was angry at the world and bitter about the hand I'd been dealt. I thought I'd never be happy again after losing Emma's mother. Marcus. Let me finish, he said gently. Then you changed everything. Not because you gave me money or helped me win a lawsuit, but because you showed me that people can be better than their circumstances. You showed me that love doesn't have to be about what you can provide for someone, it can just be about choosing to build a life together. Marcus got down on one knee and pulled out the ring. Victoria gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Victoria Ashford, will you marry me? Will you be Emma's stepmother and my partner in all the adventures to come? Victoria was crying now, tears streaming down her face. Yes, she whispered. Yes, of course, yes. As Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, Emma burst out of her room cheering. I told you she'd say yes. Emma shouted, running to hug them both. They were married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the community center where their foundation held meetings. It wasn't fancy. Victoria's former life would have demanded a society wedding with hundreds of guests. But it was perfect. Marcus's co-workers from his various jobs were there, along with Mrs. Rodriguez and other neighbors from their old apartment building. Victoria's guest list was smaller. She had made few real friends during her wealthy years, but it included the entire staff of the foundation and several of the workers they had helped through their organization. Emma served as the maid of honor, wearing a dress she had picked out herself. She took her job seriously, making sure Victoria's dress was arranged perfectly and that Marcus had the rings ready. The ceremony was officiated by Judge Martinez, who had presided over their case against Ashford Industries. In his remarks, he talked about the power of forgiveness and second chances. I've seen a lot of cases in my courtroom, Judge Martinez said, but I've never seen two people take such different paths to find their way to each other. Marcus taught us that strength isn't about what you own, but about what you're willing to sacrifice for others. Victoria taught us that true courage is being willing to give up everything you've been given to become the person you choose to be. During their first dance, Victoria looked up at Marcus and smiled. "Any regrets?" she asked. Marcus looked around the room at their friends and family, then down at Emma, who was dancing with Mrs. Rodriguez nearby. "Only one," he said. Victoria looked concerned. "What?" "I regret that it took a fire to bring us together. I wish we could have found each other sooner." Victoria laughed. "Maybe we weren't ready for each other sooner. Maybe we both needed to go through everything we went through to become the people we needed to be." "Maybe you're right," Marcus agreed. "But I'm grateful for every day we have now." The Fair Work Foundation had grown from a small nonprofit to a nationally recognized organization. Marcus served as executive director, while Victoria handled legal affairs and policy advocacy. They had helped thousands of workers recover stolen wages and had pushed for legislation to strengthen worker protections. Emma, now 14, volunteered at the foundation during summers and had announced her intention to become a labor lawyer when she grew up. She was confident, intelligent, and kind, a testament to the stability and love she had received from both her father and stepmother. The family lived in a modest house in a middle-class neighborhood. They could have afforded something larger with Marcus's settlement money, but they preferred to save most of it for Emma's education and to fund their nonprofit work. One evening, as they sat on their front porch watching Emma play with neighborhood kids, Victoria reflected on how much their lives had changed. "Do you ever miss it?" Marcus asked, as if reading her thoughts. "The big house, the money, the luxury?" Victoria considered the question seriously, as she always did. "I miss some things," she said honestly. "I miss feeling secure about money. I miss not having to worry about whether we can afford car repairs or whether Emma can take that art class she wants." Marcus nodded. Financial stress was still a reality for them, even with the settlement money set aside. "But," Victoria continued, "I don't miss feeling empty. I don't miss wondering if people like me for who I was or what I could do for them. I don't miss lying awake at night wondering if my life had any meaning." "And now?" Victoria reached over and took his hand. "Now I know that the best things in life aren't things at all. They're moments like this, knowing that we've built something real together. They're watching Emma grow up confident and kind. They're knowing that our work actually helps people." Marcus squeezed her hand. "I love you, Victoria Johnson. I love you too, Marcus Johnson. Thank you for saving my life. Thank you for saving mine." As the sun set behind them, their daughter's laughter filled the air, and both Marcus and Victoria knew that they had found something worth more than all the money in the world. They had found home. The fire that had brought them together had destroyed Victoria's old life completely, but from those ashes they had built something better. A love based on mutual respect, shared values, and the understanding that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the lives you touch and the love you give and receive. Sometimes the most beautiful stories begin with the most devastating moments. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what really matters. And sometimes, the person who saves your life is someone you never expected to meet, someone whose life you save in return without even realizing it. Marcus had saved Victoria from the fire, but Victoria had saved Marcus from a life of bitterness and struggle. Together, they had saved each other from loneliness and built a family rooted in love, purpose, and hope. In the end, they both learned that kindness is never wasted, that people can change if they truly want to, and that the greatest revenge against those who hurt you is to build a life so full of love and meaning that their cruelty becomes irrelevant. Their story proved that sometimes the most unlikely people can become exactly what each other needs, and that the most powerful force in the world isn't money or status or revenge. It's the simple decision to choose love over hate, hope over despair, and forgiveness over bitterness. As they sat together on their porch, watching their daughter play in the fading light, Marcus and Victoria knew that they had won something far more valuable than any lawsuit settlement. They had won each other, and in doing so they had won everything that truly mattered.